Today on my channel, Planner Friends, I'm actually filming this in advance. What we're going to do this week on my channel here on Sundays, It's Always Faith, I'm going to show you how I do these studies. These are the studies I've been using in this planner are from the Daily Grace Co. And this one is about, what's the title? Stand Firm, Putting on the Full Armor of God. And that's what we're going to learn about today. So I'm going to read to you some from the Bible, some from the text in here, and I'm going to show you how I approach it in my faith planner. As always, my goal is to hopefully inspire you in your faith and in your creativity. So please join me. I'd be honored to have you with me, and stay tuned. Hello planner friends, and welcome to my channel. I'm One Crafty Dolo. I'm very happy you're here with me today. Thank you for taking your time and spending it with me. True confession, I'm filming this early in the week to drop on Sunday because I wanted to share with you today doing a Bible study for a week, faith study in my faith planner. I want to show you the process, and I want to do it right now with you rather than doing it ahead of time. So let's get into it. If you're new, you're welcome to subscribe. If you're, returning, thank you for the blessing of your presence. Now, the verse this starts on is the verse I used last week in my video. So I'm going to do something different. We're going to go into the book of James, James 1, 1. Count it all joy, my brothers. And then we go into the other subsequent verses 2 to 4. When you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Some versions say endurance. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and completely lacking in nothing. Count it all joy is one of my favorite phrases from the Bible. Not an easy thing to do when we're in the muck, is it? But yeah, so we're going to count today joy and make a joyful noise and so forth. So now, this is the new study. I finished my Lenten study. I finished my gospel study. Now this is called Stand Firm, Putting on the Full Armor of God, which comes from Ephesians 6. This is a different translation, but it's fine. Finally, be strengthened by the Lord and his vast strength. Put on the full armor of God so you can stand against the schemes of the devil, for our struggle is not flesh and blood, but against the rulers, the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this darkness, against evil spiritual forces in the heavens. For this reason, take up the full armor of God so that you may be able to resist in the evil day, having prepared everything to take your stand. Stand therefore with truth like a belt around your waist, righteousness like armor on your chest, and your feet sandaled with the readiness for the gospel of peace. That seems pertinent now, doesn't it? In every situation, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Pray at all times in the Spirit, with every prayer and request, and stay alert with all perseverance and intercession for all the saints. Now, this is different from what I've done before. Underline every noun that represents what God has already provided for us through Jesus Christ. Circle every verb. It's like an English lesson, right? Language arts. 5th grade. Circle every verb that indicates what we are to do with what God has provided to us, and make a list. I'm not writing in here. I don't know that I'm going to do that, but here we go. Okay. We must arise each day with the thoughtfulness and discernment of the Lord's instruction. So we read Ephesians. Let's get into what it's saying in here. It is difficult for most of us to imagine someone going into war unprotected. Few would step into the heat of battle without some kind of protection, for without that protection, great harm would likely come in the form of a wound or even death. We ask, who would take that risk? Yet the truth is, there are many unprotected and unaware who brave battles each day. Not in the sense of physical war, but in the spiritual war that rages around us. That is why the Apostle Paul uses this language of war to instruct the church of Ephesus. Okay, so these people would have lived during the Roman Empire. Paul draws inspiration from a time well before this era this letter was written. What's overlooked when studying the armor of God is the references to God's armor in the book of Isaiah, yes, and other books of the Old Testament. Readers might assume that Paul's inspiration for the armor of God came from the wardrobe of the Roman soldiers at the time. However, it was drawn from the Old Testament references of God exhibiting the armor himself. It's pretty interesting. I don't want to read this whole thing to you, so I'm going to take a minute and read through this. Okay, so basically what it's saying in this, it's saying to recognize how much the Old Testament plays into Paul's writings, specifically Isaiah, but it also discusses Genesis and the emergence of Satan, the fall from grace of Adam and Eve, and how sin is all around us, and that we need to identify ways God intentionally cares for us and protects us by equipping us with the armor of God, okay? And that it's a spiritual battle. We have to be defensive and offensive against sin. God grows us in wisdom and preparation for this battle as we aim to love and obey Him in all things. May we fight the good fight and look forward to the day of Christ's final victory over sin. So I read the Bible verse and then I read this whole thing before I do anything in this book here. And you don't have to use a planner. You can use anything you want. So I'm just going to take a minute, look at the colors here. Do I want a pink marker? I've got pink. I've got this green. Nah, I don't want that green. We're going to get rid of that right away. I also have the dark pink, which I think I used last week again. I've been using it a lot this month. We also have a light green. I do have a light green, don't I? Which doesn't show up particularly well. I'm going to go with the pink, the light pink. So the first thing I like to do in here is write down the Bible, at least part of the Bible verses. For me, that's the key, okay? To any of these studies, I mark out the Bible verses. Since I use the ESV on my phone, and I'm filming with my phone, I'm actually going to use the King James Version in here, which is nothing wrong with that, right? So we're going to put, I'm going to start, and I usually put the Bible verses in marker to make them stand out. And we're going to go right to the phrase, the armor of God, and I'm going to write that in there. Okay, so I wrote down 6, 11, and 12 from Ephesians. Now, what I feel like doing is going back in here and looking at this, and I think I'm going to take a few quotes from it, because I think that's a good way to balance it out. I always use quote marks when I'm quoting Bible, and although I always use a heading, but here I'm just going to take where it says, the battle we fight is not a physical one, but a spiritual one. And I think that's key, okay? And I would be taking, normally I would do a little bit, like, if not every day, every other day, like I would write out the Bible verse and then I'd come back to it, but I want to do it all now in front of you just to show you how I do this, to kind of inspire you a little bit. And so the idea is that we're in a daily battle, okay? And so here I'm going to just take some of my points, and that God, through Jesus, equips us for this battle. Equipped us. There should be an S for this battle. We are strong through Him for facing it. Okay. This is why it takes me a while. I could do this in a day, as I did with Lent, but I'm actually getting more out of it when I flesh it out over the course of a week, right? And so we fight this battle daily. We cannot let our guards down because Satan knows how to tempt with us and so forth. And I think they bring up some good points. And I really like, one of the things I like about the Daily Grace Co studies, it goes back to Genesis in this case, or it goes back to Isaiah. And I kind of want to pull up some of Genesis 3 here. And it talks about the fall of man, okay? And it just, when the God hears them and he's like, who told you were naked? He talks about, eating the apple. You should be banned. And what the text of the study says, it creates havoc not only for man, but in terms of the weather, in terms of life, in terms of the creatures. And I think that's, you know what I mean? I think that's a really important point. And so the serpent in the beginning is God, is the devil. And it's going against what God had made. Did God really tell you not to eat from any of the trees in the garden? The woman answered the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. And it's only the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden. God said, do not eat it, do not touch it. So this chapter comes into Ephesians in that Eve is corrupted, and then Adam and Eve both are corrupted and kind of banished. And so what does the New Testament bring to that story? Jesus. The New Testament tells us that we are even further equipped to stand against the snares of the world. And one of the things these studies keep bringing home to me is that God protects us by equipping us with his armor, and Satan is wholly against us. W-H-O-L-L-Y, not H-O-L-Y. And he can't force us to choose things against our will, but he'll make sin enticing. And I think that's why bringing in Genesis absolutely fits. Yes. And so through the salvation in Jesus Christ, he equips us to fight the battle against sin and evil from every angle. Okay. So we are strong through him for facing it. God through Jesus equipped us for this battle. The world, I always say this in my study, God and Jesus, right? We, as Christians, must rely on the strength of God's words, love, and Jesus. And that's really how I flesh this out. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I need to flesh out on this side the rest of this week. I think I've got basically what they're saying here. I could add more about the Holy Spirit, but this is the process that I use. But I always start by going through the Bible verses first. That's the key. And then sometimes I quote them, but when I do my own, I always put little arrows so I can easily glance at this and say, okay, that's what I took from it. That's what the author said, and this is the Bible verse, if that makes sense. For me, this is the way it works best. So I am actually going to go ahead, and the next one you read Ephesians 6, 10 through 11 again, but also Psalm 18. And that's the one I want to really pick up on here. So Psalm 18 is a thanksgiving for help and victory. I love you, O Lord, my strength, O Lord, my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. My God, my rock of refuge, my shield, the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. Praise be the Lord, I exclaim, and I am safe from my enemies. And it goes on. It's a wonderful psalm. So it goes through about how God came to his support. He rescued me from my mighty enemy and from my foes who were too powerful for me. They attacked me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord came to my support. He set me free in the open and rescued me because he loves me. It's really, really, yeah. Whew. You indeed, O Lord, give light to my lamp. O my God, you brighten the darkness about me. For with your aid I run against an armed band, and by the help of my God I leap over a wall. God's way is unerring. The promise of the Lord is fire tried. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. I love that. So now now that I've read that, I had already read Ephesians. It's building on this idea, obviously, of God equipping us. I'm going to take a minute and read through here. Okay, so this one is full of every which way, all kinds of other verses. This is great, and this is good. Honestly, this could easily be on 2 pages, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So first off, what I'm going to do is take some of Psalm 18 and write it in here. So I did write verses 1 through 4 of the Psalm in here. I really like this Psalm. I have to tell you, I wasn't that aware of it. Now I am. And this is what this study gives me. It includes me in, it helps me to get through all these verses that I may not be fully familiar with. And so they're asking, where do we find strength for the battle before us? Okay. And so how we have to stand up. And it brings in one of my favorites, Isaiah 41:10. And that's what I'm going to put down here, because I love linking Old Testament and New Testament, just like the other one with Genesis and Ephesians. So I'm going to write that down here, that verse. So for those of you who may not know, Isaiah 41:10, fear not, I am with you. Be not dismayed, I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you and uphold you with my right hand of justice. In some translations, it says virtuous right hand. And so where are we then, right? I did it all in one shot, but we're just at the tip of the iceberg here, I feel, because I think we're just starting to get into this. So we did the first day or week, day, I guess you would say, and now we're in the second. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to continue this coming week, but I wanted to show you how I do this. And I then take the same marker usually, and I put, see, the armor of God, right? And I always try to come up with something from the study to add down here. And yeah, and so what I'm gonna, my rock, I'm actually going to take this, my rock, my fortress. Oops, my rock, my fortress. And that is how I do my faith studies, friends. I take my time. Usually I take several days, but I wanted to share the process with you. That's how a study that may seem like it's only for a month, or yeah, if even 4 weeks, 3 weeks, I think this, I do a little bit longer because I really like fleshing it out. So what I'm going to do this coming week then is to stretch that out. And so it'll be almost like 1 page for the first day, week, then 1, 2, 3 for the next, because there's a lot in there that I haven't even gotten to, but I don't want to rush it. I want to take my time. I want to savor the process. And as always, my hope is to inspire you and your own faith studies. So today, the day that I'm dropping it is going to be Sunday. And hopefully as we go into this next week, which will be the last full week of April, we learn and we grow together in our faith. As always, I appreciate you being here. And please, if you're suffering, if you're dealing with something, join me. Let's stand firm together and let's put on and understand what it means to put on the full armor of God and carry the mantle of Christ forward into our week. If you need prayers, put it in the comments below. I'm praying for many people, and I will be honored to add you to my list. Have a blessed week, planner and faith friends. Bye now.